And welcome back, everyone, to the studio, to the show, to a show with a co-host, and not just any co-host, Nina Turner, fresh off of Thanksgiving. How's it going, Nina?
Hi, John. Moving steadily. How are you?
I am doing okay. We had power problems in the studio, so yesterday I did the show on my phone from the shed in my backyard. It feels good to be back in a studio with lights and heat and everything, and to be able to have a guest. How were the holidays for you? How did a little bit of time off treat you?
Good. I needed it. I baked a lot because I'm the baker in the family. I think we were talking about that the last time we were together. Sweet potato pies, pound cake.
Nice.
The kind of things we should not eat on a regular basis, but good for the
Probably
holiday.
not. So my friend James, he lives in Houston. He's a lawyer in Houston, and he came and he had he hadn't packed a lot. He had a backpack, and half the backpack was taken up with this wood box that was transporting a pecan pie, and it was so good. I don't even think of myself as liking pecan pie. We were fighting over those slices as a household. Oh my God. I gained like 5 pounds off of pecans.
Yes. Oh yeah, let's not even talk about the weight gain. Let's just go on and get into correction mode.
I know, if it can be corrected. Some things you can't come back from, and I worry. January 6th and Thanksgiving, 2 things we can't go back. So anyway, thank you to the bakers for what you do. You make the world worth living in. But anyway, thank you to all of you for being here too. Appreciate you watching the show. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and sharing the stream, that would be great. And as we go through the next 90 minutes of news and stuff that's going on, you can send us comments, tweets, super chats, all that, and we will respond as we go. I will let you know ahead of time. We are going to, as we sometimes have to, expose you to some of the worst people in our country. And I am apologizing to the audience, but also to Nina Turner. Nina, I'm sorry, but we're gonna get through it. Don't worry, we're gonna get through it. It's gonna be okay.
We always do.
We will. Okay, so everyone, hold on to your butts. We're going to give a little update to something we were talking about yesterday. Let's jump into this.
She kept asking for a public apology. So I told Ilhan Omar that she should make a public apology to the American people for her anti-American, anti-Semitic, anti-police rhetoric. She continued to press, and I continued to press back. And then Representative Omar hung up on me. Rejecting an apology and hanging up on someone is part of cancel culture 101 and a pillar of the Democrat Party.
So that's technically a Congresswoman, Lauren Boebert, talking about the conversation she had with actual Congresswoman Ilhan Omar after Boebert was filmed commenting that because Omar is a Muslim, she's presumably a terrorist, amongst a lot of other incredibly racist, Islamophobic, xenophobic comments. And Omar had a phone call with her. I wouldn't have done that, I don't think, if I were her, but she tried. And Lauren Boebert did what Lauren Boebert did. I mean, that's just a bit of the video, but did she seem apologetic from the video that you saw? We don't know. We don't have the recording of the phone call. We don't know exactly what was said or what tone it was said in. But Nina, I'm going to guess that it was aggressive. I don't think it was overly apologetic. What do you think?
No, I mean, we can tell if she took that tone that we saw in the video with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, then we know what the energy was. That is not, look, memo to Congresswoman Boebert. What you just displayed is not a damn apology. You don't go on to apologize to somebody and then indict them in the same conversation. Where I'm from, that's not called an apology. And I'm like you, John, I probably wouldn't even taken her call because we knew she was gonna be up to no good. That's number one. Yeah. And number two, I would have hung up on her too.
Yeah, maybe even sooner.
After a few choice words that I will cannot say on this child PG-13 program.
You can't say it on the program, but if we can get you on the phone with Boebert, I think we can make it happen. Look, this is all a stunt because stunts are all that these people have. They're there for stunts. They were selected because of stunts. And you can tell with the way, why can't she speak like a normal person? She pushed back and I pushed back. Like, it's like she's chewing every word like it's some sort of performance. Or just talk like a human being. You're on Instagram, seriously. It's not like you're not doing an HBO docu. Like, just talk like a person. But in the extended comments, she said, as a strong Christian woman, I would never want to say anything that offends someone's religion. Well, then why do you constantly joke about the Jihad Squad? Why do you constantly joke? Like, this is not the first time that she joked about the mere fact that a woman might be a Muslim means she should be suspected of being a terrorist. She says that constantly. So I don't buy that. She goes on to say, by the way, after, like, how could my apology not be good enough to Ilhan Omar? She then called her a terrorist sympathizer again, said I would never support terrorism, but we can't say that about her. She's empathizing with terrorists, which I've never seen from Ilhan Omar. I have seen some stuff from Lauren Boebert, though. I thought it was weird when she tweeted back in the day, the Taliban are the only people building back better after they had retaken Afghanistan. Taliban, by the way, killed thousands of American service members and countless civilians over the past couple of decades. But she thought it was funny, I guess. Seems like sympathy to me. So anyway, we're gonna get into what Ilhan Omar had to say about that call. I am curious, Nina, what do you think, if anything, should be done now?
I mean, the leadership of the GOP needs to call Congresswoman Boebert out and tell her this kind of behavior is not acceptable yet, but it is acceptable. And that's why they won't call her out. It's tenuous in that GOP right now. And McCarthy, who wants to take control, he has to do this delicate dance to be able to have the votes, to be able to, continue to be their leader. And if, in fact, the GOP take the House next year, God forbid, but it's looking more and more like that is going to be the reality. A program note, unfortunately. But he's doing a delicate dance, so he doesn't really care what she's doing. How this is putting the Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's life in danger is the Islamophobia is so thick. You can cut it with a knife. Speaking of knives, we were talking about knives a little earlier before we got on there. But it does. I mean, there are some consequences, and she's stoking, Congresswoman Hobart is stoking the flames of hatred and bigotry and racism. That's exactly what she's doing. And they can try to parse this out and try to say, well, she said this and no. Congresswoman Boebert is stoking the flames of racism and anti-Muslim hate. And it puts Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's life in danger, the lives of her family, and other people who are Muslim in danger.
Yeah, and by the way, so you were asking for the GOP leadership to comment. They haven't really done that. Kevin McCarthy said at some point that he'd talked to Boebert, and Boebert apologized, even though she won't really do it publicly. She put out a tweet. What's up,
John? Now, we weren't there, but I can kind of imagine, can't you, what he said to her? Now, you can't talk that. You can't say that out loud. Don't say that out loud. Whatever. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just had to say that.
No. I think that that may be further than he went. He might have said like, hey, like, say it because like the base really likes it. But I have to pretend that I chastised you. So that's also possible. We do know some Republicans are criticizing. Nancy Mace recently, who has her own problems, said that they should not be using these racist tropes. As a result of that mild criticism, she's now like in day 3 of being continually attacked by Marjorie Greene as being a traitor to the Republican Party. So that's cool. Anyway, I just want to jump in. I want to read a little bit of what Ilhan Omar said coming out of the conversation. She put out a statement saying, today I graciously accepted a call from Representative Lauren Boebert in the hope of receiving a direct apology for falsely claiming she met me in an elevator, suggested I was a terrorist, and for a history of anti-Muslim hate. Instead of apologizing for her Islamophobic comments and fabricated lies, Representative Boebert refused to publicly acknowledge her hurtful and dangerous comments. She instead doubled down on her rhetoric, and I decided to end the unproductive call. So she doubled down on the call. I guess the video on Instagram was her tripling down on her Islamophobic comments. Representative Omar goes on to say, I believe in engaging with those we disagree with respectfully, but not when that disagreement is rooted in outright bigotry and hate. To date, the Republican Party leadership has done nothing to condemn and hold their own members accountable for repeated instances of anti-Muslim hate and harassment. This is not about one hateful statement or one politician. It is about a party that has mainstreamed bigotry and hatred. It is time for Republican leader McCarthy to actually hold his party accountable. I am going to guess he's not going to do that. So look, I agreed with you. I think that the Republican Party should handle this. It doesn't seem like that's gonna happen. If nothing else comes of this, if Kevin McCarthy doesn't say anything, if there's no internal thing, then do we just move? I guess we just move on. Like that's because they could censure her, they could take her off of her committees. I suppose they've been doing that recently for violent comments and things like that. Should they do that in this case?
Yeah, I think they should, but again, they know that ultimately there will be no consequence unless the voters give the consequence. Because look at Congresswoman Green. I mean, she's still out there doing her thing like nothing has happened at all. This woman has been taken off of committees, and she's still out there stoking hatred and just out there wilding out. So ultimately, but the leadership should at least take a strong stand, and stop playing with these people. It hurt beyond the Republican Party itself. It hurts this country, and it hurts our being able to commune one with another, because there are some people that look at these leaders, they believe every freaking word that comes out of their mouths, and they're painting Congresswoman Ilhan Omar as the other, and then people who do subscribe to that religion as the other too. And that is very dangerous for all of us.
Yeah, I want to jump ahead to a tweet that was put out by Representative Jamal Bowman, who he had a similar thing to say. He said, "This isn't an accident. Targeting Muslims and immigrants is at the center of right-wing strategy. Ilhan is both Muslim and an immigrant. Ignoring this vile behavior is ignoring this strategy and attempt to oppress." Well, the right wing is gonna ignore it. They're not gonna do anything. McCarthy, he wanted Marjorie Greene to apologize once, I think, and it was when Marjorie Greene compared, those being asked to get vaccinated to those who'd been killed in the Holocaust. That's like the one line that they technically won't cross. Aside from that, they don't really seem to care. It doesn't seem at this point like the Democratic leadership in the House did put out a statement saying that they don't support the comments that were said against Representative Omar. But so far, it doesn't look like they're going to censure him in the same way they did to Representative Gosar when he was fantasizing about murdering AOC. And I'll just throw this out here. I understand that in comparison to the comments about Omar, perhaps it's light, but she did also make homophobic comments about Pete Buttigieg, and that is it's being almost entirely ignored. I get that there's multiple scandals happening simultaneously, but she didn't even tweet an apology about making those homophobic remarks. I guess that's the most normalized thing ever in the GOP.
I mean, you gotta take all of this in totality and not just as the individual incident. And I think that is what Representative Jamal Bowman was really getting at in what he tweeted out, that it isn't the whole of this. It is exactly what Congresswoman Ilhan Omar was getting at when she put her statement out. It is the whole of these things. It is all of these things added up. In other words, the straw that is breaking the camel's back. So they should censor her. And I think for the Democratic Party, and we know, look, the squad oftentimes has to fight with its own party too, for its respect. And so I'm glad they put out a statement, but they could definitely take this further if they wanted to, if they look at everything in totality and not just this one outburst by Boebert, because it's not just one outburst, it's several of those. And we have a body of evidence that shows that this Congresswoman is a bigot.
Yeah. And not just her. There's only so much of this that we can engage with simultaneously, but we're not even gonna play the video. This morning, Marjorie Greene, it was in the last day, went on the show, Steve Bannon's show, and said that Ilhan Omar was an Al-Qaeda supporter. She's bloodthirsty. She wants Republicans taken out. That's maybe worse than the stuff that Boebert was saying. And she said it on the air. Boebert maybe could at least try to hide behind, she didn't think the video would get out, which is really cowardly. But Greene went on the show to say those things. So I don't know what we're supposed to do. Many of the mechanisms that would disincentivize this is supposed to be that it's abhorrent, that people won't support it, that leadership won't support, but leadership on the right does support it. Their voters love it. It's the only thing they have to give their voters, and that's the only thing that seemingly their voters have been trained to want. So I don't know what we're supposed to do. And finally, to jump ahead a little bit, they've been saying, oh, well, you censure us for our assassination videos. Then when we get back in charge, we're gonna do the same thing to you. And I kind of don't doubt that they're gonna do that, but I don't know what comments are they going to be trying to take to justify like removing Ilhan Omar from her, like they're gonna be going after Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar and AOC, but they don't say things like this. So when inevitably the House does pass to the Republicans, because the Democrats are gonna do, F all between now and then, what are these news cycles gonna be? What are they gonna be using to justify the revenge that they want?
They won't have much, John, and that they know, because in the culture war, they are the ones that take it to the extreme, and they're programming countless numbers of Americans, again, to see other people, to see people as the other, and the other that must be feared, that must be reviled. That is the problem here. And we've been through cycles of this in the country. It's part of human existence, unfortunately. And here we are in the 21st century having a replay, if you will, of some of the worst segments of American history. We're right back there again. And I just want to see more Republicans are going, if the leadership can't do it in the Congress, then we need Republicans outside of the Congress to denounce this kind of behavior and run people. And I know it will be hard for them to do, but they got to run just like as progressives run people against corporate Dems. We need some good group of Republicans who have not lost their ever-loving mind to get the courage to run against these people, whether they can beat them or not. They got to put up a challenge, because the people on the inside are not going to do it. If they want to reclaim the Republican Party, they need to get some folks that are not extremists in that way, in the way that these people are displaying themselves to be, to run against them and have real conversations with people in this state, in their respective state.
Yeah, I agree. And we should bear in mind if and when that ever does happen, those Republicans are still going to be awful. They just might not be quite as insane on a daily basis as these ones.
That's true.
But hey, we'll take improvements wherever we can get them, I guess. Okay, with that, we are gonna take our first break. We're gonna read some of your comments. When we come back, a little update on the pandemic, who is to blame for the way things are going, and then what can be done to try to lower the amount of death and suffering around the globe. There's a plan out there. We'll see if we follow it after this. I just happen to be a big fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. I don't know, maybe you can like the name even without that, but I think they're pretty cool. There's not a lot of really big.
Too.
You do? Okay, good. We may not share Game of Thrones, but we can share Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yes.
And Barbossa. Anyway, well, unfortunately, we're gonna turn from good bits of pop culture to the worst people operating in our culture. Let's jump directly into this video.
It's cheap to treat. Medicines are available all over the world, and it has death rates that compare very much to seasonal flu. And so in that moment, what you see on Dr. Fauci, this is what people say to me, that he doesn't represent science to them. He represents Joseph Mengele. Dr. Joseph Mengele, the Nazi doctor who did experiments on Jews during the Second World War and in the concentration camps. And I am talking about people all across the world are saying this.
Okay, so to clarify a couple of things, Lara Logan there is talking about COVID when she says it's easy to treat, it's cheap to treat. There's lots of medicines that treat it, and it has similar death rates to the seasonal flu. I want to be clear, that video is from this week. I know you might think, wait, isn't that what they were saying in like the first month of the pandemic, and then they had to back off of that? No, they're back. Everything gets rebooted these days, so why not COVID is just the flu? I know what you're thinking, hey, didn't way over 700,000 confirmed deaths just in the United States happen from COVID? Yes, is that like the flu? No, not at all, but that's not gonna stop their little narrative there. But the thing is, it's easy to sort of not focus on that part when she says, when people see Fauci, they see a Nazi doctor who did illegal, immoral, genocidal experiments on Jewish prisoners. Okay, well, that is a lot crazier than the other stuff she was saying, Nina. So maybe we should grapple briefly with that. She is on Fox as a commenter, and she just said that Fauci's a Nazi effectively. So what are we supposed to do?
What we're doing right now, John, what you're doing, using your platform to expose this madness, and hopefully we can talk some of these people off the ledge. I mean, there are many things that kind of get you amped up. This is yet one of them. To compare him to a Nazi, it is beyond. It is really beyond the pale. And Fox News should be ashamed, but they're not. They keep allowing. It's one thing to have an opinion about something, to be very spirited about something. This woman is flat out lying on Dr. Fauci and labeling him something that no conscious-minded human being would ever want to be compared to or labeled at all. I mean, she is way, and I mean way over the top on this.
Yeah, and the people that were on the panel with her, nothing to say.
They were nodding their
No
head.
problem with it.
Yeah,
They're just fine with it.
None at all.
This
Nobody
is
called
OAN.
her out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they don't have a problem. I mean, they were basically racing who's gonna be the first one to say that he's a Nazi. She got it. Okay, good job, Lara Logan. She's not gonna get in trouble for that or anything.
She'll get more followers. She'll get lifted. She will get the opposite of what we think should happen in this case.
Yeah, and let's bear in mind why she is doing this. She does not want anyone to trust Dr. Fauci or comply with any of the medical advice coming from countless doctors around the world, because they don't care if this pandemic literally ever ends. And that is going to be a through line of quite a few of the things we're going to show you in a few minutes. I did just briefly want to allow someone with more of an organization with more of a direct vested interest in the history of this to address what Lara Logan said. The Auschwitz Memorial Museum tweeted, exploiting the tragedy of people who became victims of criminal pseudo-medical experiments in Auschwitz in a debate about vaccines, pandemic, and people who fight for saving human lives is shameful. It is disrespectful to victims and a sad symptom of moral and intellectual decline. 100%. And it kind of fits into their programming, because this same week, while she was calling Fauci Mengele, Tucker Carlson was calling him Benito Mussolini. And I'm gonna actually fact check that one. If he actually thought he was a fascist, I have a feeling Tucker Carlson would love Dr. Fauci. So that one doesn't even actually make sense ideologically. And then fit this into their general commentary about the pandemic. They don't want you to trust Fauci because he represents taking the pandemic seriously. For whatever flaws he has, he doesn't want you to get sick and die. So Hannity had on a guest who said that the COVID vaccine is basically useless and claims that the vaccine is causing the variants. Let's see, Nancy Mace went on Fox to talk about how great natural immunity is, which you may not follow their terminology. That means getting COVID is great. As a treatment to not get COVID, you should get COVID. And then you go through weeks and weeks and months and a year and a half of this, of them doing everything they can to get you to willingly accept the virus into your body. And at the end of all that, they will then tweet, as the GOP did, Joe Biden promised he would shut down the coronavirus. He failed. That was yesterday. I mean, they're not technically wrong. He did promise that, and there is still a lot of coronavirus. But I kind of feel like they were involved in this process too, in a way that they're not really making clear in that tweet, Nina.
Yeah, I mean, the nerve. I mean, my grandmother would say more nerve than a brass A monkey at this point of those folks. One of those mother wit sayings. But no, the nerve of them, why they come on night after night to propagate, don't get vaccinated, don't take this virus seriously. And then they have the nerve to try to indict the current president of the United States of America. Well, you know what? I won't say it makes sense in their world.
Yeah. By the way, like if you wanna criticize Joe, we're gonna in like 5 minutes we're gonna begin criticizing Joe Biden having to do with the pandemic for his unwillingness to actually assume the mantle of leadership and pushing for the vaccine patent a moratorium, effectively letting more countries produce the patent. There are things to criticize him on. But the idea that he is singularly responsible for there still being COVID when they advocate for the virus on a daily basis. Look, we don't have graphics for these. I just noticed these. Nikki Ramirez at Media Matters, who we've had on the show several times, she put up an article this morning. Tucker Carlson said that the national vaccination effort is the greatest public policy failure of all time because people are still dying when, in his words, we have universal vaccination, which is not true. Less than 60% of the US population is still fully vaccinated. Only 70% has received at least one dose. And I defy you to come up with a single person more responsible for that gap than Tucker Carlson. But after a year and a half of doing everything he can to get you to not be vaccinated, he will then claim that everyone is vaccinated and it doesn't matter because they're still dying. And bear in mind, earlier this month, he had Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on to say that vaccines cause autism. Carlson ended that segment by saying, will any thinking person ever trust vaccines again? Carlson has also, in multiple instances, claimed that the COVID vaccine is killing thousands of people. He also brought in Alex Berenson. This is just like a week ago to say there's just no evidence that the vaccines halt infection or transmission in any way. None of that is true. All of that is a lie. All of it is designed to stop people from getting vaccinated so that more people will still get COVID, die from COVID, and then they can claim that the Democrats are the ones that always want a new variant. The Democrats are the ones who want the pandemic to continue when they are working 24/7 to make sure that people continue to get COVID and die from it.
That's it. I mean, you want to talk about people having blood on their hands. This deliberate misinformation. And when you wrap a situation like this, John, like a global pandemic, into who's a Democrat and who's a Republican, to me, it lies the problem. This is a matter for humanity, not about who's the Democrat or who's the Republican, but about humanity. And so if they could just see it through that lens, even if you don't believe the vaccines work, okay, we're gonna put that in the parking lot. Let's listen to what the medical experts have to say about the best way to tame this thing. And we're learning more and more as we go. We know more now than we knew in 2019. And you have people working every single day in labs, just trying to find the ultimate fix for this. But what we do know for sure is that all of us bear some responsibility in trying to slow the spread and to tame this thing. Yep. We all do. And it's just something wrong with those people. It really is. I mean, I don't even know what else to say, John, on the PG-13 show. It is something wrong with them. And all they care about is their clicks and their headlines. And they don't care if these people believe what they're spewing and these people die. We don't have Medicare for all in this country. So to say people, you have natural immunity, just get it. Well, what if you just get it and you die, or you get it and you're in the hospital for days, for weeks, for months? Your quality of life never the same. And then you're stuck with hundreds of thousands of dollars or thousands of dollars worth of medical bills.
Yeah.
What the hell?
100%, and possibly symptoms, organ damage, loss of senses,
right, for the rest of your life. Jesus,
but if you in a few years when we know more about long COVID, and we have literally millions of Americans who are suffering from the experience of that on a daily basis, I'm sure the Republican Party will be there to make sure that they're well taken care of and their suffering is minimized. No, everything that you just said there is 100% right. And look, it's one of my issues is fundamentally, as a strategy to stop people from getting infected with COVID, saying you should get natural immunity is a weird way to go about that. If I were to tell you the best way to protect your belongings from a fire is to burn that mother down, you would be a bit suspicious, wouldn't you? But for some reason it works with them. And we, more so now than before, people are less focused on the pandemic. Even here at the Damage Report, we've done literally thousands of videos about the pandemic. We talk about it less than we did. We used to, back in the beginning, talk about how many people were getting sick and how many were dying quite frequently, almost on a daily basis. It has been a bit since we did that. I don't know if most of the people watching this look it up independently. I still do. The last reported day of deaths had nearly 900 still. every single day has 900 or 1,000, and we just don't care. That is the product of all of what we've debated ad nauseum, day after day, all of the nonsense about natural immunity and herd immunity and how we just have to let people get sick and vaccines, I don't know, they're super suspicious, should we really get it? We lost 900 people yesterday. And there's just no empathy, there's no empathy. And I wanna ask you one last question, Nina. So Biden presumably doesn't want there to be this pandemic. He's encouraged vaccine mandates and things like that. In theory, he could have gone farther, but he's done a good bit to make sure that we have access to this, that the boosters are made available and all that. So they're blaming him anyway, even though presumably they're blaming him for something that they don't care about, but somehow they care about it when it's his fault. So at this point, what should the White House actually do? Like, if the goal is still to stop the pandemic from continuing and from getting worse, they're not gonna change. They're clearly not gonna change. So what should the White House do?
Well, I think the approach, this is not about what the White House is going to do. Certainly showing some leadership on this and saying, hey, we gotta get the vaccine out. We gotta make sure people have access to boosters. We gotta protect. That's well and good. But I really do believe, John, that the White House should not be the messenger. Big Mama should be the messenger. We need respected community leaders, people who live, work, and play in these communities, primarily elders, because there is, in many cultures, American culture, we certainly could do a better job. But you know what I mean? When we go from the macro to the micro, the whole notion of who the message is coming from. Is that person authentic? Are they trusted? That more of this messaging should be more of the messaging, or the messenger should be somebody that's closer to the people who we're asking to take the shot. I really believe that more community organizations who are out there doing the work of helping and loving on communities on a regular basis, we need to uplift them more and empower them more instead of people with fancy titles. I do believe that would help. Not to say that politicians shouldn't come out and say, hey, I think you should take this. These are the reasons why. They should. But to me, empowering the people who are closest to the pain in this situation, the people who have the street credibility, would be a better way to go.
Yeah. And hopefully it would be a little bit harder for Fox News to smear those local community leaders as Mengele.
That's exactly right.
No, that's a good idea. I think they should do that. We are gonna talk briefly though about what Joe Biden could do. We were just telling, hey Fox, if you'd like to criticize Joe Biden, there are actual good areas to do that, and let's demonstrate that for them now. President Joe Biden would have you believe that he supports a waiver on the vaccine patents, enabling effectively more and more countries to domestically produce the vaccine and get their populations vaccinated. In fact, he said this recently: I call on the nations gathering next week for the WTO ministerial meeting to meet the US challenge to waive intellectual property protections for COVID vaccines, so these vaccines can be manufactured globally. I endorsed this position in April. This news today reiterates the importance of moving on this quickly. He was referring there to the new news about the Omicron variant of COVID that's going around. So he's saying, I want you to do it. I've been talking about it since April. I'm pushing for it now. But are they actually doing that? Because some documents have been released from a recent gathering of the TRIPS body, the trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights meeting. And apparently in there, the Biden administration just referred to their past comments about the vaccine patent. They didn't push people vigorously, the countries vigorously there, to actually move on it. They never specified whether they support the specific proposal for vaccine patent removal put forward by South Africa and India way back in October of last year, nor clarified what changes it would like to see from that or other plans if it doesn't support those. So publicly, they're giving speeches saying, we want to do this thing, but behind closed doors, they're basically just sitting there and saying, I refer you to what I said in the spring, and that's it. So that is, they don't seem to be like aggressive roadblocks to the waiver happening, but they're hardly assuming a position of leadership on this, Nina.
That's it, John. They're not aggressively saying to the world, let's get this done. I mean, the member nations of the WTO, the the United States of America, do you know what we could do if we stood up morally on this issue and how we could get the barriers to the patent done? Absolutely done. The President of the United States of America saying this must happen. This burns my behind, John, a whole lot, because it's hypocrisy is what it is. And when you're dealing with a pandemic, something of this magnitude, you can't just, putting a ban on people traveling here, and you know that there are some doctors who have said this ban is not gonna work. Look, the crime is already here. Just like the Rona here, the crime is here too. And cutting off travel and making certain people in this world, making them feel less than, stigmatizing them in the same way that other president did. What is the difference? Whether you do it with a smile or you do it with open bigotry, with overt bigotry as President Trump did. What difference does it make? It is the actions, John, and that is what has been exposed here. That is what you are exposing. That there is, you can say, what are you going to do? They're not doing anything, and countries are suffering. The industrialized nations of this world must come together and make the damn demand and put some action behind that demand. People all over the world, we talk about our deaths here, all over the world are vulnerable and are dying, and particularly on the continent of Africa. And these folks sitting up here playing games. That's period. So you're right, Fox News, if you want to criticize something, have at that, baby.
Exactly, yeah, criticize the ban. They're not going to because they loved it under Trump. By the way, I understand the variant. We're banning travel from countries that have way less COVID than we do, which seems weird. They should be banning travel from us. We've got multi-million-dollar news anchors going on the air every night telling people, no, natural immunity is really cool. You should get COVID. No, it's the best thing to get COVID. And we're banning travel from those countries. But I want to give you an update.
One other point, John, but the ban doesn't work in and of itself. Yeah. This is not something we can't, borders don't work in this case. Action does towards trying to eradicate this thing, trying to tame it, and doing everything in our power to get all nations. Yes, of course, charity starts at home and then spreads abroad. But where is our charity abroad, given the immense wealth that this thing, and even when we show that kind of charity, we're actually showing it for ourselves. Yeah. No, this 100%. Is a case, in the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that what affects one directly affects us all indirectly. Like this, that is real. That's tangible.
Yeah. And we said this on the show yesterday. I mean, what did we say when we were having a debate 10 months ago about the vaccine waiver? If you just sit by and watch as COVID continues to wreak havoc around the world, it is going to birth not only endless suffering and deaths, but also variants, and you will not be able to avoid those variants reaching our shores. Well, that's now happening regularly. We had Delta, and now we're gonna have Omicron, and God only knows we're gonna get Gamma, and we're gonna get all sorts of stuff. Exactly as we said, and how much progress has there been? I'll let you know how much progress there's been. Public Citizen did a review of CDC data, and they found that so far in America, 37 million people have received a booster shot. So this isn't regular vaccination. They've already been vaccinated. 37 million have also gotten a booster. Meanwhile, across the countries of Botswana, Eswatini, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, and Zimbabwe, 8 different countries, only 30 million people have gotten a shot of a vaccine, one shot. So we're outpacing huge sections of the world just in our boosters, and then hoping the boosters will protect us from variants that don't even exist yet, and allowing chaos and suffering and death around the world. That's what we're doing. It's a great strategy, Nina.
And John, and you know what else? And this is real. Another reason why the world does not care, because it is Africa. I mean, historically, let's look at imperialism, colonialism. This is just another, you want to talk about strains. This is just another iteration of it in the 21st century. We have other countries that are suffering too, but particularly the level of the suffering on the continent of Africa. Let's not fool ourselves as to why, in fact, this is happening. Let's call it what it is. Most of the industrialized nations are not black, are not of color. Most of them are European, and we see the play. It's the same play of the 20th century, the 19th century, the 18th century, the 17th century, the 16th century. It's the same play, but a different day. And we got to own that.
Yeah, 100%.
Burns my behind.
Yeah, like I find that comparison to be just awful.
John, can you say that again though? But can you just make that point just one more time? Even if it's just for me, please.
In the US, just boosters, extra stuff, extra renewed protection, 37 million across 8 countries that are on the new travel restriction list, by the way, only 30 million people. So way more boosters than across 8 different countries. It's insane. What do we think is going to happen? And I know that like making this comparison for like the vast majority of every Republican and the vast majority of Democrats isn't gonna mean anything. So pretend I'm talking about Sweden and Ireland and Greece and Italy. Pretend that, because they're people, regardless of which country they're in, and they are suffering. All the variants that we're super worried will someday hit us. Yeah, they are there. Like we could care about that. We could do something about this. It would be a very inexpensive investment and do endless moral good, objective moral good. We spend all this money on national defense. This seems like a great opportunity to do a little bit of national defense while also helping people around the world. Think about all the goodwill that we could generate, but we're not. Anyway, the lower third has been referencing the fact that nursing unions have come together in 28 different countries to push for the UN to make these the vaccine waivers available. We also saw just before going live that Senator Bernie Sanders is once again pushing the WTO to approve vaccine patent waiver. We're getting a reminder right now of how necessary this is. It shouldn't be necessary, this reminder, but we're getting it. We'll have to see if the WTO or the UN actually listens.
When the nurses speak, baby, you better listen.
I hope.
That's it. I mean, yeah.
Okay, well, we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we got an update on the effort to unionize at Amazon. We'll have that for you after this. Okay, we got a couple more stories to close out the hour. Also wanted to thank Lucid Fox for the raid. Always much appreciated. Thank you for that. And with that, let's jump into this. The effort earlier this year to unionize an Amazon warehouse was unsuccessful, but there was a lot of concern about the process that led up to it. And that concern has now borne fruit, with a US Labor Board official ordering a revote after an agency review found that Amazon had improperly pressured warehouse staff to vote against joining a union, tainting the original election results enough to scrap it. That decision was issued just yesterday by a regional director of the NLRB. Amazon is expected to appeal, so we will have to see what happens with that. But we do know from people who work at Amazon, one warehouse staffer said that during mandatory meetings at the facility, so the captive meetings, managers said the fulfillment center could shut down if the staff voted to unionize. Other workers said they were told that the union would waste their dues on fancy vacations and cars. Now, they are literally not supposed to make threats like that. That's supposed to be one of the only things that is restricted under our incredibly loose labor laws. But the threats about, they'll waste your money and making them sit there, that's hardly surprising at this point. But this decision, Nina, does this give you hope that maybe with a second try, we might see unionization actually come to Amazon?
No, it really does. And big ups to the people, to the workers in Bessemer, Alabama, for really getting this party started and really being strong, and for the RWDSU union that was there to help them try to unionize. Stuart Applebaum leads that organization. John, I was in Bessemer, Alabama, really standing side by side with those workers, and they are really serious about this. And just the level of human disrespect that happens to them, from being followed while you're there, watched constantly, too afraid to go to the bathroom. I mean, I was able to talk to workers who were enduring that on a regular basis. And not 201, John, did they say they wanted Amazon to fail as a company. They just want to be paid a decent living and have decent working conditions. That is not too much to ask. So I'm really glad of the NLRB's decision finally, and I hope to God that they actually can organize enough, take this to the next level, and get the workers there unionized, because there will be a domino effect once this happens. So shout out to them. Yeah. And then people like Senator Sanders went there. One of my dear friends, Michael Render, AKA Killer Mike, Dr. West, Brother Danny Glover. So many people who were on our, fight this fight along with us, the progressive side, went down to Bessemer, Alabama to show solidarity side by side with those workers. So this is really, really it's a sign for them. And I hope that they can push it all the way through.
I hope so. We won't know for a little bit. Amazon has in about 2 weeks to potentially appeal this. Perhaps we'll have some sort of date within the next month. We don't know, but we do know that the campaigns have already restarted. The captive audience meetings have begun. The signs against unionization in the bathrooms have already begun. So that's fun. Weird though that in the name of all the list of people that had showed up that you had, no right-wing politicians were there. I mean, there's got to be conservatives working at Amazon. What about their economic anxiety? Why aren't you hate Jeff Bezos? Why are you standing with Jeff Bezos to crush his workers? So weird how that works.
It is weird. I don't know, John. Maybe we missed. Stand up.
Stand up. By the way,
let us know. Yeah, if they were there, if they went down there. Yeah, let us know. We might be wrong.
Maybe they were wearing glasses with the nose and the mustache. I don't know. Maybe Matt Gaetz was there. By the way, final note. Labor unions have successfully organized some European Amazon facilities. I don't want to be too American centric. It just hasn't happened here in the United States. So thank you to those internationally that have done that. We are running very low on time, so why don't we jump into one last story with the limited time we have with Senator Turner. Let's jump into this. The organization Moms for Liberty, which you'll be shocked to find out is a far-right group, has filed an 11-page complaint about a few books that are being taught in a school district. So let's jump into a bit of this complaint to give you an idea of what they want to get banned under new critical race theory ban law. So they have this violation. They say that these grade 2 civil rights heroes being taught about, we should not be using these books like Martin Luther King Jr. and the March on Washington. Ruby Bridges Goes to School, My True Story by Ruby Bridges. The Story of Ruby Bridges, Separate is Never Equal. These sorts of things are, they say, explicit and implicitly anti-American, anti-white, and anti-Mexican. It teaches second grade children that people of color continue to be oppressed by an angry, vicious, scary, mean, loud, violent, rude, and hateful white population. And so those books, Nina, now need to be taken out because apparently these books for kids about the March on Washington are doing a critical race theory, and so they need to be banned. It's not cancel culture though, somehow. It's not cancel culture, but what do you think about this?
John, I just can't. They use the critical race theory as a cloak for their true intentions, which is they do not want the good, the bad, and the ugly part of this country, this experiment, this American experiment to be taught. That is revisionist history. And they really are, now you want to talk about some dangerous games. To try to tell children that what happened didn't happen. Was there not a March on Washington? Did Ruby Bridges exist? Was there not enslavement in the United States of America? Did this country not take the lands of our indigenous sisters and brothers and family and friends? Jesus, was there not women not given the right to vote until they had to fight for that right to vote? This stuff is insanity. But let me go back and center this thing because they do not want the history, the true history of this country to be taught in any way. They don't want to be discomforted in any way at all. Well, baby, slavery existed in this country. They did that. Black people had to march for their civil rights in this country, including voting, economic rights. And yes, are some of those things still happening in this country? Absolutely right now today. You know what? I ain't even got to go way back. Let me just step into 2008, if we might, during the Great Recession, where Black people lost 50% of their wealth through their home. Jesus, let's look at the criminal injustice system, the legal system. What are these people talking about, John? They living in la la land. And it is the height of not just hypocrisy. I feel sorry for them in a way. Because to try to manipulate your children in that way and not want them to know the truth. It is only the truth about this country. It's a multifaceted truth, but there's truth. Jesus, we getting that 30-second sign. I'm telling you, John.
I know. I love everything that you're saying. You're 100% right. They do not want history to be taught. If they're successful, we will look back on the history being taught in the 1950s as being comparatively accurate and all-encompassing. And that is a sad state to be in. I'm so sorry, we are running out of time. Nina Turner, as always, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
It was so good to be with you in the Dragon Squad. I'll see you next Tuesday.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.